Okay, so today I thought I'd set myself a little bit of a challenge to create an IDM track out of a pre-existing track that is, kind of not IDM at all, just by editing the hell out of it. So the idea I've got is to start with this nice little Japanese funk tune that I've got from a film score and kind of turn it into this IDM banger however I can manage to. So, yeah, that's just kind of the idea that I had. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how the process unfolds. I'm pretty excited. Let's go. Okay, so to start with, we've just got the track here in Reaper. Starting from the whole album that I've kind of just trimmed down to one little 4-minute track that I grabbed from YouTube. Okay, so the first thing that I've done is I've just listened through to the whole track, and I've got only the parts where it's only the drums playing. Now it's time to go through and quantize all these. Okay, so now I've got all the drum loops, the breaks, lined up and quantized to 109 BPM, which is the closest I could find to the original tempo. And I've removed all the little bits of piano that were there before, and I've quantized some of them because there were some timing issues, and you can see that the problem is, for the moment, that they all start on beat 2, because for each and every single one of these breaks, there is a piano hit on beat 1. So for getting just the drums, we have to work with some rather incomplete breaks, but that's okay because we're going to be chopping them up a little more. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've got each of these broken down into each individual beat, and I'm going to render every single one of these as a WAV file along with the loops in the first track, and I'm going to pull all these into Reason and see if we can start editing some drums. I've just got all these clips in their own folder, and we've got a Kong kit here in Reason, tempo set to 109 like it was before, and let's start editing, see what happens. Okay, so after a while of chopping up these little bits of breaks, I think I've found kind of something that sounds both nothing like any of the original loops, but which is also cool to use as a kind of starting 4/4 break, which I can then manipulate and add stuff to. So okay, so after a little while of going through Reaper, there's not much in the way of isolated hits with no percussion. So I'm working with very few kind of piano and bass samples. So I'll try chucking them into samplers and see if we can kind of make a melody out of any of this. See, the problem here is that there's really no actual sections of melody from the original that we can sample. Now, after all that, I did manage to take one of the hits, hit 6, and make a kind of little bass line out of it, just by chucking it in a sampler. programming this very simple riff in C minor and kind of adding a little bit of distortion and low pass filtering everything so that we aren't getting that ride hit that we have in the original. When we kind of, pair it with the kick drum. Starts to sound alright, I think. Okay, so what I've managed to do now, after failing to write a melody with another hit, I've just taken one of the piano hits, tuned it down a fair bit, and made another bass, which I've just doubled up with the first bass to create a stronger sound, and I've panned each of them to opposite sides of the stereo field. And now I just have to finally figure out how I'm actually going to write a melody with this very limited set of samples. So what I've actually done now is I've had a bit of a change of heart, a bit of a change of plan, because I've been trying to get that melody to work, or any melody to work, in Reason. I've had a little trouble with it, so what I've done is I've just re-rendered the break that we made in Reason earlier, This isn't a tutorial, that I made in Reason earlier. And I've sent it back into Reaper, and I've taken it down to 100 BPM, and I've also slowed the playback rate to 0.9, and I've got a little bit of reverb. So, forget IDM, we're doing this Portishead style today. Okay, so because of the difficulty I've had finding any actual long tones in this entire piece, what I'm doing, which is kind of maybe cheating a little, but, I'm going to call it ingenuity, is just taking one of the piano hits from earlier, and to make the kind of pad that I'm going to do my moody chords with, I've just added a whole bunch of reverb, slowed it down, and EQ'd it so we're only getting a specific set of notes. I'm going to try and use that little reverb tail there to make a pad. So now we're back in Reason, and I've got just a nice, really simple but moody chord progression with just a sine wave that has got a lot of attack on it, and I think it sounds kind of cool in a really Portishead-esque way. Now all I have to do is figure out how to do this same chord, but using something that's actually from the song, because that's the challenge. But okay, so now I've got a bass line that I originally sketched out with just a sine bass, and now I've put in the same two basses as before. Sounds pretty good over those chords. So now I've got the verse pattern and a little bit of a chorus pattern in the pad here. The pad's sounding a little weird, so maybe try and back it up with some other similar pads, but for now, I think this is kind of a structure developing. So what I've done now is that I have edited the chorus pattern to give it a little bit of a distinctive feel in the drums. You can see it's all chopped up there, and now what I'm doing is I've written this like kind of almost theremin-esque line to go over the top of it, And I am going to go into Reaper and see if I can take this little hit where it's a kick and a note on a bass guitar, and whether I can low pass filter and loop it into kind of a recognizable sine tone, which I can then manipulate to sound like a theremin. Okay, so now from a little loop of that bass tone, I've got this kind of rapidly oscillating sine wave. So let's render that. I'll put it in the lead and I'll resample it into the lead and reason and see if it sounds okay. Okay, after all that work, we've got something that sounds nothing like a theremin, but it'll do. I think it's a nice little kind of almost feedbacky tone. Make that kind of a bit of a thing that can go in the chorus. I've had some issues with trying to create any good pad tones, so for now I'm just gonna edit the structure of this a bit more, give a little more meaning to the verse-chorus structure, and then maybe we can see if we can add some scratches or something to try and give this a bit of a track feel before we go back to writing pad or melody stuff. Okay, so just now I've edited in a bit of an intro to this whole thing. So what I've got is I've got the drums, a few loops of little bits from the drum break with just fading up in terms of a low pass filter and also a bit of a delay. I've also got an unrelated, just random loop from the end of the track, which has been reversed and is on the right side. And I've also got the delay from the first chord in the chord synth just being reversed. So it kind of has that reverse delay feel, which I think sounds pretty cool. Has that disjointed like reverse reverb. Okay, so now I think it's time for some scratches, and for that I'm going to do something kind of unorthodox in that I've got just one of the loops that I made really early on from the drum track here in Virtual DJ, and I'm just going to record this straight into Audacity, kind of trying to keep the tempo in my head. This is kind of a sketchy way to do things, but just recording it direct into Audacity and seeing if we can get some nice scratch sounds that we can edit in, and maybe add some filters too, like low pass filter or something, and put in the chorus to make it sound kind of moody, I guess. See how this goes. Okay, so it took a while, but I got those kind of random scratches down and quantized to a few usable sections, which I've just kind of run through a whole heap of filters to make it kind of sound more lo-fi and like it's actually coming from kind of a low quality turntable. But yeah, that can be our pattern for the chorus. Okay, so after a lot of writing and a lot of pondering, I think this is nearing its conclusion. I've added a few things. I've done a lot of strategic bussing, which I will use for mixing later. I have added, just a dip in filter. I've added some piano hits from before to kind of vary the chorus, and also some tuned toms again in the chorus. I've decided that adding extra pads is going to be a bit difficult, so I think this is going to be kind of how it ends up in the end. Okay, I think it's done.